Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Good Morning America. Tonight we have an incredible guest for you and a very important topic. I'm going to start off by reading something directly from the COS website. You may recognize it. In recent years, we've wasted far too much time explaining that Satanism has nothing to do with kidnapping, drug abuse, child molestation, animal or child sacrifice, or any or any number of other acts that idiots, hysterics, and opportunists would like to credit us with. Satanism is a life-loving, rational philosophy that millions of people adhere to. Now, we're ready for something that goes quite a few steps beyond just explaining our principles. Every revisionist movement needs a set of goals, guidelines that are clear, concrete, and that will affect significant changes. So, I am Lorcan Black, the best host of every possible show on the planet right now. And with me, as always, is Jeff Bowling. How are we doing, Jeff?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and I am stoked for this episode. In case you haven't figured it out by that introduction, today we are discussing Pentagonal Revisionism. It's an important topic in the satanic discussion, and it's one that I've been waiting to find the perfect guest to discuss it with. And I think that right now we have found the absolute perfect guest to discuss this topic with. So without further ado, she is the author of The Secret Life of a Satanist, an authorized biography of Anton Szandor LaVey, and The Church of Satan, a history of the world's most notorious religion, as well as multiple essays that can be found on www.churchofsatan.com. She is the former High Priestess and the current Magister Templi Rex of the Church of Satan. One second, please. Are you ready, Lorcan?
Yes, sir.
Please help us welcome the unmatched,
The incomparable,
the unrivaled,
the unsurpassable
the one and only Blanche
Blanche
Barton.
Barton.
Welcome to the show. How are you, Blanche?
My goodness, that was quite the introduction. I can just leave now. I
And we
don't
didn't
want
and we didn't even rehearse that. We promised.
I don't want to I better quit while I'm ahead, as the doctor used to say.
Well, thank you
So
very
thank you.
much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you
Thank you
very
so
much for
much.
having me on with this very important topic. I'm glad that you're taking the time to go over this, the Pentagonal Revisionism, and how important it is for us to remember what our goals are, what our history is, and just another opportunity. And I'd like to say, very apt for your particular show, your particular format. I appreciate that you're taking a look at current events and politics and where that's going and where it leads us and how Satanism and Satanists interact with modern politics as it moves forward.
Absolutely. No,
Well,
thank you
yeah,
for
well,
taking
you
part
heard it
in it.
right here. All you haters can just go fuck yourselves.
If Blanche Barton likes it, everyone should like it.
Well, I think I may be a little unusual in my willingness to engage in politics as a Satanist. But a lot of times I don't say that I'm a Satanist when I'm engaging in politics. I go to marches, or I pass out in literature at vegan booths, at street fairs. I advocate for various environmental issues, but I don't wear my Satanism on my sleeve. If someone wants to have that conversation with me, that's great. But I don't say, "Hey, I'm a Satanist and I vote for such and such," because I think that the Church of Satan has it right when we have a general policy of we are a spiritual philosophy, we're a spiritual um, framework for people to explore their philosophy and their various interests along those lines, their magical interests and cutting edge ideas in that forum. We're not a political group. We shouldn't be a political group, because the founding fathers of America had it right when they said that religion has to be kept out of the public square. It only creates division, and it creates more arguments than it really solves. What you do and how you feel about the world around you, or your relationship with your higher self, or your whatever mythological context or spiritual context you want to create for yourself, that's yours and yours alone. It doesn't need to go into the public square, and we have enough things to argue about. We certainly don't need to argue about religion on top of everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is where we need the round of applause sound effect. So,
Oh,
John,
hold
when you
on.
listen to this. No, but it was absolutely well said, and I completely agree with that sentiment. We've seen far too many coattail riders. The overall identity of being a Satanist to further some ridiculous political agenda, rather than just being engaged in those things. The separation of church and state is, well, it's something that we'll talk about as we get into this essay here.
Yeah.
But it's an extremely important part of the American experience, and that includes Satanism. So, if you feel the need to get involved, if you feel the need to go to a march or to sign petitions or whatever, then do that. You should absolutely indulge in that behavior, but don't do it as a Satanist.
Yes.
You just happen to be a Satanist doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, precisely. And as I say, that's not to say that I'm not proud to be a Satanist.
Right.
I
Right.
often wear my Baphomet, or some jewelry that people would certainly identify with Satanism. But when I'm there representing animal rights, or when I'm there marching for women's rights, or equality on some level or another, I'm doing it as an individual. I'm not doing it as a representation, as a representative of the Church of Satan, or because I feel that Satanism truly could be used as a justification or a framework for a lot of different political ideas. For example, abortion. If you could make a good case on satanic grounds that life begins at the moment of conception, and that is sacred, and that anything that happens after that is murder. On the other hand, you could make a case that the oppression and that has gone on toward women continues a history of oppression and paternalism for women that has existed for a very long time, and we need to get past. So, and either one of those postures could be very well put into a satanic framework.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think the reason for that is that Satanism is literally the only religion out there that is truly all about the individual. It is
Correct.
about how you maximize your own life, and just like Magus Gilmore says in the Policy on Politics, that means that when you are that strict about individualism, that the philosophy could apply equally to a fascist as it could to an anarchist, or a communist to a Republican, or what have you. It could pretty much fit across the board to any political ideology.
Correct. And I have to say that Anton LaVey himself didn't have a great deal of respect for politics and political involvement. He felt that it was a game, put on for the rubes, essentially, that the real power lies in other areas, other individuals, other groups. And it's, a football game. It's something to get people excited about. It's something for people to choose up sides.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
I mean,
really,
I'm still, I actually kind of bend that way a little bit too. And Jeff, Raul does. We had a conversation in a past episode about the whole bloodline thing, and the powers that be are really just using everybody like puppets, and everything you see on TV is just for entertainment.
And don't forget the lizards. Don't forget the lizards.
The lizard people.
yes, of course, lizard people. Never leave them out of any
Yeah, I
conversation.
try not. God, now that we know that Zuckerberg, is part of the lizard clan.
But I can see what influence political movements have had over the last decades, in positive ways, as far as responsibility toward corporations for cleaning up their crap. And people are more aware of trash. People are more aware of being respectful, smokers being respectful of other people, and just a lot more awareness of animals, and trying to protect animals, and clean up factory farming, and all of that has started. Environmentalism and human rights and all of that started with grassroots political action. What you do in your backyard, what you talk to your neighbors about, how you want to structure your immediate environment, and that has echoes and waves out from you. And I think Satanists are, of course, the best people on the planet, the wisest, the smartest, the most perceptive. They have a wonderful take on life and on the world, and I would love for Satanists to be as involved as they can be. Certainly the earth and humanity needs Satanists to come forward now more than ever with what we're facing.
Yeah. So remember,
Well, that
everybody.
sounds like a call to
Remember,
arms to me.
it's gonna be Lorcan Black and Jeff Bowling, 2020, running for president.
I'm waiting for that ticket. With what we've had in the last one, boy oh boy, I think you'd get a lot of support.
At this point, I'm pretty sure anybody
Yeah.
can get support.
Yeah, I mean, we could go out in our robes and people are like, "Oh my God, they must be off a TV show." Oh, let's vote.
Well, I think that is a fantastic point of view to have on politics, and I thank you very much for sharing it. Um, I'm ready to dive in because I feel like that Pentagonal Revisionism is the closest thing to an official political or societal stance that Dr. LaVey ever really took in writing the original canon of Satanism, as it were. And I don't mean that this follows one particular political ideology, but it is a set of ideals that Satanists are striving for in society, the way we would like to see the world change. Um, and so before we jump in, I wanted to ask you, Magister Barton, if you had any insight into what the doctor thought about this essay, about these points, like what was his motivation for writing this out?
Well, I know exactly his motivation. We were up to our hips in slogging through the Satanic Panic, and he felt that it was high time that we stop defending ourselves and start telling people exactly what we are doing, as opposed to what we weren't doing, which was all the accusations of child molestation and animal sacrifice and child sacrifice. And I mean, this happened on a daily basis, that we had to address these ridiculous accusations. It was constant. And he felt that it was time that instead of just saying, no, 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 this is not what we do, this is not what we stand for, he wanted to have a positive note of, okay, this is what we do represent. He wrote the Satanic Sins, I believe, in 87. Right, yeah, 87. And then the Pentagonal Revisionism in 88. And yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, and so he wanted people to know what Satanists could do, what our activities were. And of course, he had been working on artificial human companions and had been writing about artificial human companions for many, many years. And he had been building them, working with the styrofoam and the glues and the plastics and they were his art pieces that he worked on, and they were amazing. And so he wanted to continue that. He felt a real need for that, and so we'll get into that. But yes, that's the context, was the Satanic Panic and trying to clarify for people exactly what Satanism supports.
Outstanding. And that's an interesting point too, because all the things that they accused Satanists of doing back during the Satanic Panic, um, this 5-point program that Dr. LeVay laid out is, in my opinion, much more dangerous to the status quo than many of the things they were accusing us of doing. And I always loved that he had the ability to do that. That he would see something that was happening in society, and he would come out with something that, on the surface, just seems like a good common sense idea, but when you really dig into it, is more dangerous than you would expect for the way that things are. Um, but what's life without a few shakeups along the way, right?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Um, Further on in the introduction, past what Lorcan read, he says the following 5-point program reflects the attitudes which allow others to decide whether they wish to align themselves with Satanism or not. And that line to me has always really stuck out about this, because to me, and you can please by all means correct me if I'm wrong here, Magister Barton, but to me, that's kind of a line in the sand, as it were. That's the way I've read it. That this is what we are doing. This is the way we are attempting to change the world in accordance with our ideals. Um, and if that's not something that you can agree with, something you can get on board with, you're probably not one of us.
Well, I believe that's very correct. As you say, he took these points to be elementary. Much as he'd written the Satanic Bible, he felt that these are obvious, and that any Satanist would see them as obvious, and that they would be embraced by the membership at large as a relief, that someone would come forward and put these into a framework that as a simple 5-point plan. He talked about revisionist movements, needing a simple framework, and that's what he intended these to be. Certainly marching orders.
And that's that's a really good point too, because most revisionist papers from the past are they're so long, and this is just 5 simple points. That's all you need.
Yeah, that's the way he saw it.
I was gonna say, I mean, but the simplicity of it is still, I mean, 100% cut and dry, and that's all that's needed. I mean, you don't have to water everything down with word after word after word I mean, it just, that's one of the things that always gets me about some of these bills that get, put forth and everything. It's like 12,000 pages. I'm like, I know for a fact that you don't need 12,000 pages to,
No, but they need to justify their budget
yeah,
to
well,
pay the people that put those 12,000 pages together.
and most of them don't get read, and I always wonder if it's 10 pages of actual text and then
And just like blah blah
11,990.
blah.
Yeah. you know,
Well, in scientific papers, they have an abstract, so you read
Hmm.
the abstract. You don't really need all the rest of
Right,
it.
right.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
it's the same thing.
United States law for dummies.
Yeah, it is really interesting though when you think about and we're totally getting off topic, but screw it. When you think about the I have a little book. It's like that big, and it's the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights all together. And that little tiny book is all you needed to start an entire new country. And nowadays, just to make sure that people can't sell marijuana or whatever, you need something like that thick.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like that.
can you imagine what our founding fathers would think about that? I mean, Jefferson himself said, you need a revolution every once in a while,
Mhm.
and Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, they were all about pithy, straightforward, and go for the gut,
You
and that's
yeah,
what we should be doing. But
modern senators and representatives, I don't feel like they know how to use their words as effectively as the founding fathers did, or as Dr. LeVay did,
yeah,
to be quite honest.
No.
So let's jump into to the 5 points here. The number 1 point, and he says it right in the description of it, It's the one which all others ultimately rest on, stratification. Um, and this isn't just, something that we want to allow to happen. It's something that we want to encourage to happen in society to, in effect, create a meritocracy um,
Correct.
out of our world that we live in.
Hmm.
So, how do you guys feel about? Let's talk about stratification. What do you guys think about it?
What my favorite line is the last part of it. No one should be protected from the effects of his own stupidity.
And that's
I,
the key.
I love that right there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
it's
key right there. I have a quote that I used in the article that I wrote for the Cloven Hoof later from the doctor. Um, he said, if a person is ethical, productive, sensitive, and knows how to conduct himself among human beings, fine. If he's a destructive, amoral parasite, he should be dealt with quickly and cruelly. Now, he's not
absolutely.
talking about stratification
Mhm.
money-wise or
Hmm.
position or birth or race. None of that. None of that. That's not anything that he was ever interested in. He felt that people who were contributing to society should be encouraged. People who aren't contributing to society should not be encouraged. I mean, again, that is so simple. And the people that are, as you say, it should be a meritocracy. The people that are working hard, that want to work for the good of society and civilization to bring us forward, why not give them the rewards that they deserve?
Yeah. Yep. And that's why we're here, Jeff. We're pushing it forward. We're getting it done. That's why we're here. That's why we do this. We do this for you, for your benefit, people.
But
So to put
instead,
this in a supremely modern context, what are some examples that you guys see in modern society where this idea is either is working well, where it's being implemented correctly, or where it's just been completely tossed to the side?
I'll let you take this one right off.
well, I think it's an underlying, Dr. LeVay saw it as an underlying holdover from Christianity, where um, everyone is equal and everyone is should be provided with, housing. And th- I think the mistake that people make is that they have taken the, the pursuit, you have a right to the pursuit of happiness as you have the right and the obligation for the government or somebody to make you happy and provide everything for you. The opportunity to succeed is different from everything being handed to you. And I think that's a confusion that we have in our society in general. Um, and we run up against it time and time again, and it comes from an underlying ethic of this hangover from Christianity, that we should provide loaves and fishes for everyone, that the Lord will provide. The Lord does not provide. The world and humanity and society and nature are cruel and demanding places, and you have to be smarter, you have to work harder, you have to have focus, you have to create a community of friends and family that you care about and concentrate on what you want to do, because life is short and you need to move forward with your life. So I guess that's where I see it in society in general, is a disdain for education sometimes, a, a suspicion of the wealthy, because there's this presupposition that somehow you inherited your wealth rather than you worked your ass off to get it. Um, and as a society, we need to emphasize education, intercultural understanding, communication, all the all the simplest things that would bring a society together, rather than concentrating our energies and forgiving and accepting people that choose not to participate or move our civilization forward, and on the contrary, try their best to hold it back.
Yeah, and
I think
I
that's
think I
very,
think
very well said.
Yeah,
Very well
I
said.
think one of the things that, if you want to look like politically, one of the things that have created so much mediocrity in this country is just the idea, the entitlement. Everyone, like you said, everyone should be given everything. And I get that. Some of these programs help certain people for a while, like unemployment, welfare, but a lot of people, and people don't want to hear this, but a lot of people don't need it when they're on it, and they use it for far too long. I mean, I can see them using these things for a while and then getting back up on your feet. But a lot of people, once they start getting this, they kind of get in this sit back, relax, I'm just going to let the government take care of me. And then nobody's trying, nobody's advancing, nobody's learning. And then it's those people that are pushing for the dreamer. It's like, well, we need to pay for to bring people in from other countries and everything to help advance our country. It's like, well, we have people right here. If you would just stand up and get up off your ass and do something, you know. But it just, I don't. That's one thing that irritates me is how our government makes it sound like they want to help you, but in my eyes, it just feels like it hurts society rather than
Mm.
helps. So
Well, I think it's been said by people in general is that, social programs should be a springboard rather than a hammock,
yes,
you know.
absolutely.
And so yeah, I definitely, I've been in need. I've been in need of help, and I've appreciated the help that I've gotten. It's been from friends and family. I know what it's like to be down there, and if you're a person who needs help, I'm more than willing. I mean, I give people, if I my change on the street, if I feel that they're worthy, if it looks like they're, temporarily down on their luck and they need some help, I think there should be social programs for retraining and reentry into the workforce. I'm not against social programs, but I'm also not for the cult of victimization that Dr. LeVay identified. That, nobody wants to take welfare. It's a change in our culture. There was a time when people were embarrassed to take welfare.
Yeah.
They depended on their family, or they did the worst work that they possibly could do instead of standing in a welfare line. When I was a kid, okay, now you'll get the old stories. When I was a kid, I spent part of my time in Idaho with relatives. Summer, the high school kids, junior high school kids, would go out and pick potatoes or strawberries or vegetables or sugar beets or whatever needed to be whatever needed to be picked for money. They wouldn't work at McDonald's, or they wouldn't, be checkers, or they picked vegetables and fruit that needed to be picked. And that's how they made their summer money. Now our culture says, well, we don't want to do that, or young people don't want to go out and do that. That's not labor that we want to do anymore.
Nobody wants to
We used
sweat.
to, yeah, we used to be farmers. We used to be ranchers. We used to sweat in this country. And now people just don't have that idea of a work ethic anymore.
Yeah.
Granted, things have changed. I know we live in a technologically advanced society, and we do things differently. But I think the principle of hard work, starting at the bottom, you enter as an entry level position, not expecting to get a living wage from it.
Yeah.
You work at it because it's an entry level position, and you're planning on advancing out of it.
Yes.
You don't expect it to be, enough to handle your car payments, your phone payments, your rent or your mortgage, and your health insurance and everything else that comes along with breathing in modern life.
Yeah. Well, also, like one of the things I've noticed about young people, well, I guess most people now, where they push for the $15 an hour, like I want to start off in the workforce flipping burgers and McDonald's and be paid $15 an hour because that's what needed. That's what's needed. And I'm like, well, it's not. what happened to the concept of having 2 jobs, 3 jobs? I know people used to do that. They used to work 70, 80 hours a week, to get by and everything like that while still getting an education. But, people don't want to do that. They want to do everything quick and easy, and it's just give me what I need right now to afford this big apartment in New York City, and that's part of the mediocrity issue.
It's hard for kids these days too. I understand because young people, high school age and early 20s are the ones that are pointed to as getting the least amount of sleep because they just don't have time. If they're trying to work, if they're trying to be responsible, help their families, and go to school and do their homework that is overwhelming and have a social life. Um, Boy, talk about juggling. It's no wonder they don't get adequate sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think you really hit on something there. People used to be embarrassed to accept help from the government. I was raised on welfare and they called them food stamps then. I don't know what they're EBT, I think they're called now. But we actually had like paper, fake money food stamps that we could take to the grocery store. And when I was younger than that, we even had the commodities warehouse where we could go and get like cans of government peanut butter and blocks of government cheese. And I still love government peanut butter, by the way. But I was embarrassed to grow up that way. I didn't want to tell my friends what I did, and so even as young as 12 years old, it became an idea in my head that I would never do that again.
Yeah.
And so I first, as soon as I was able to, I got a paper route. And once I had the paper route, I had enough money to start, indulging in hobbies. And once I figured out what kind of hobbies I enjoyed, one of them was playing Magic the Gathering. So I would spend all my time at this comic book store. And while I was there, I saw an opportunity to start helping. So I would start sweeping the floor. I would start rearranging comic books. And it was only about 6 months before the owner said, "Do you want a job?" And so at 12
Right.
years old, I'm running a paper out and working at a comic book store, all because I didn't want to ever be on welfare again.
Yeah.
Um, and when you lose that sense of drive, that sense of purpose, then the entitlement programs, the social programs, they do start to lose what they're intended to do. They're intended to pick people back up when they fall down. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think there's something wrong with the mentality of the majority of people who are, well, I won't even say the majority, with some people who are on those programs these days. And it ties directly into the idea of stratification. Um, if you are receiving some type of assistance and you're not doing something to improve your own lot in life, well, that's certainly not satanic.
No.
At the very least, it's not satanic.
No.
Yeah.
But you get the idea of when you hear on TV where these people need to um, start taking drug tests and they need to start. One guy put forth an idea that people who are getting food stamps and these kind of programs and everything, there are state positions or there are state local things that can be done, trash pickup, just literally going down the highway and picking up garbage and everything, doing something to earn the food stamps or the money that you're receiving. And across the board, I mean, you hear most people, I'm going to say most people because they're screaming everywhere, how dare you ask us to do this kind of thing? We shouldn't have to do this kind of thing. And that's when my mind gets just scrambled because I don't understand. Why shouldn't you contribute some of your time, do something for the money you're receiving?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
I
mean,
think it's fairly straight line. And as you say, I think that's in line with the ethics that most people would have regarding such things.
Yeah. I think another
And
another big example in modern society that really annoys me is and we talked about this a couple episodes ago with Marlene Shaw and Jesse Twain. We were discussing the people don't want to be offended, the kind of PC movement that's grabbing hold of society. And I think that ties directly in line with this as well, but more from a psychological point of view. But if your ideas are so flimsy, if they're so weak that they can't withstand a little bit of discussion, about those
Mhm.
ideas, or if you're going to get completely offended because someone used a word with man in it, or something of that nature, um, you're at the bottom of the totem pole in society, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we get into um, the problem with politics in America right now is that we can't talk to each other. We've become so divided and so uh, ridiculous in our discussions, so inarticulate and unable to cogently argue points instead of just resorting to name calling and poo-poo throwing. um,
Yes.
then you can't live in a democracy without the ability to debate. You have to be able to, and this is caused not only by our lack of respect for other ideas, but also the bubbles that we allow ourselves to get in now with the media the way it is, with the internet the way it is. You can live in an echo chamber and no one ever, you know, ever argues with you. No one ever challenges you. So you don't have the capacity to relate your ideas effectively or defend your ideas correctly, so that you aren't part of the conversation anymore or any kind of civil debate. So when someone attacks you, you just immediately throw up all your armor and and get flustered and strike out at them in a very personal way rather than being able to articulate, think about. First, it takes thinking, which is hard. It makes your head hurt to
Yeah.
put together an opinion about something, not dictated by the Democrats or the Republicans or anyone else that you respect or admire, but really think about the issue yourself. How do you feel about it based on your experience and your ethics and the way you were brought up? Um, don't have things pre-digested for you and fed back to you, because if we want to maintain a democracy, we have responsibility to engage in that democracy. This is a precious thing, and people don't realize how tenuous it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't come along, and it doesn't come easy. And we have to be
Yeah.
able to debate with each other on issues, not hide behind some label or not concentrate your energies to think about issues and decide for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there is a certain degree of a natural component to stratification as well, because even though we look around at society and we can see where um, things may start to turn in a wrong direction or whatnot, it's still pretty clear that those who have the drive, those who have the ability to produce something that is better for society or the world in general, tend to just do better naturally. They tend to get ahead. Um, and you were saying earlier, Blanche, that the doctor saw this kind of like the man behind the curtain kind of thing when it comes to politics. Um, I certainly don't think that happens by accident. Those people have the drive and the ambition to get to where they're at, to control things from behind the scenes. And so like I was saying, there is a natural component to this, though I think that there's a lot more we could do in society as a whole to make this to make that meritocracy, to make that the idea of stratification an acceptable idea to everyone. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I certainly think so.
people need to talk. I mean, they need to. One of the things, and I'm gonna give a shout out here. What's up, Nathan Gray? Hopefully you end up watching the episode and everything. But the last time, no, the last time we actually met up and hung out, I was telling him that, especially one of the reasons why I created the show was because some people don't get to this point, but I got to a point where I realized that my ideas on a lot of these issues were not my own. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, where is this coming from? Why am I saying this? Why am I agreeing with this and disagreeing with this? And it was all how I was raised. It was all it was my parents' thoughts and ideas that were pumped into me that I was spewing out. and I was fighting for them and yelling and screaming, but then I realized I didn't know why. I had no clue why. And that was when I was like, okay, now I need to take a step back and really evaluate everything, across the board here, and it's tough for a lot of people to really open their mind. We get comfortable in the ideas that are taught to us. Mommy told me this, so it must be right, and it's just not so. Mommy was wrong, I mean, it can be. So, and I think if more people would take the time to stop talking and listen, you may get to that root cause of why that person thinks or feels the way they do, and you may be able to share a little bit of insight with them, and they may have that wow moment. Oh, damn, now I see things completely differently, and it helps people learn, grow, and evolve. But people just want to yell and scream. You don't agree with me? Screw you. I'm unfriending you. I'm done. I don't want to talk to you ever again, because I want to talk to these 5 guys over here that agree with me, because I don't have to fight with them. Life is a fight.
Well, and
Everything.
it's interesting too when you talk about engaging in discourse. You can watch the last 14 episodes of the show, and you can see either as an overall gradually where Lorcan, I've noticed that you've started to change your views gradually. You can also see in individual episodes where I come into it with a preconceived notion, and through the course of a conversation, I change my concept about that.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about debate, about discourse, about rhetoric, is being able to either change someone else's mind or at least solidify your own views in a way that that they make sense now.
Yes. Exactly.
But yeah, as far as stratification is concerned, there's the old saying, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like as a parent, your goal is to give your child an opportunity to live a better life than you had. I think from an individual level, it should be a matter of personal pride and personal responsibility that makes you want to live a better life than your parents led. And I think that's where the big disconnect is coming. Parents, for the most part, well, I won't even say for the most part, because there's some shitty-ass parents out there. But in general, the idea of parenthood is you want to give your kids every opportunity to live a better life than you had. But they've got to take that on themselves when they become adults and learn that, hey, it's my job to take these tools that I was given and live that better life than my parents had.
Yeah. See, now my father was not that way. He was not about making things any easier for me. I remember, my father lost all of his teeth because he didn't take care of them and everything like that. When at one point when I was young, the dentist told him that I needed braces. Well, the first thing came out of his mouth was, "Well, I didn't have braces, so he's not getting them." Really? Thanks, Dad. You know what I mean? So, so you're right. A lot of parents, some parents, at least my parent, my dad.
Can you imagine that in like a different sense? Like, oh well, there wasn't a cure for polio when I was a kid. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We didn't have any of those fancy ass antibiotics in my day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, and that's part of that issue. Some people don't want to make things better. They want you to have at least the same damaging life that they had and everything, because they feel that they turned out fine. So.
Right.
I
think that's how stratification works for the betterment in general of humanity as a whole, and why it's such an important point, and why all 4 of these other points rest on it is because once you have that drive to do better, to live better than the last generation led, or the way you were raised, or whatever, you start to improve the world around you. And if everyone is on that same wavelength, we are all working to live to the best of our ability, to the absolute best of our ability, and every generation is doing that cycle after cycle, we would already have flying cars and colonies on the moon and stuff like that.
Jeff, we do. The colonies on the dark side of the moon and the flying cars are just UFOs. They're just not letting us have them. God.
This is not a conspiracy episode.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot where I was.
I did that one. Well,
Right, Go ahead.
I do applaud your attitude, though, when you were talking about um, healthy debate and not being so invested in your posture or your point of view that you can't change your mind.
Yeah.
That's what happens with all this divisiveness in our country is you become so invested in your identity as a liberal or a conservative or a hardliner of one stripe or another that you don't have any wiggle room.
Yeah.
You don't leave yourself any opportunity to listen to anybody else or be persuaded by sensible arguments or even entertain. You feel like it's a personal failure if you change to the other side.
Yeah.
That's not the way it should be. It
No.
should be that and again, as a Satanist, you practice lesser magic, and being able to debate competently, to be able to articulate well, to be able to persuade. That's the skill that comes along, one aspect of lesser magic that we all value. And I think, again, we keep getting back to Satanism being a very useful tool for people on so many different levels. I think if people had the Satanic Bible and were raised as Satanists from the very beginning to have open, questing, challenging minds, a lot of these issues that we have today would just fall away.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point. All right, so let's move on to the second point of pentagonal revisionism.
This is going to be a fun
I certainly don't think this is one that um, any Satanist would possibly have an argument against. Um, Number two is the strict taxation of all churches. Um, and of course, I mean, again, this is a pretty obvious point, but one thing that I always really respected about the Church of Satan as an organization, apart from sharing, a philosophy with it, was that they qualified to be tax exempt, but yet they still pay their taxes.
Yeah.
And so it's not just that that we as Satanists want to see this happen in society for multiple reasons, not the least of which being that churches should not be treated specially. That's what the separation of church and state is all about to begin with. Um, but that they set the standard and they show themselves as the example for this is how it's done. If the Church of Satan can do it, there's no excuse for the Catholic Church not to do it, or the Pentecostal First Church of Jesus's dog, or whatever to do
But
it.
if
Yeah.
Jeff, if they do that, they can't afford their big hats anymore, man. They got to have their big hats. I mean, God.
They're very stylish. Yeah, Dr. LeVay was very much an advocate of taxation for all churches. He really despised this hiding behind spiritual enlightenment or creating an organization just so that you could get tax exempt status. He felt that was just reprehensible. And when the Church of Satan first started, um, there was some debate about, well, to lend legitimacy, we really should take advantage of the tax exempt status because that will help us be recognized as as a true religion standing shoulder to shoulder on the same level with all the other religions. And Dr. LeVay was very adamant. No, they'll have to come where we are. Eventually, he said, Christianity will fall. All of these spiritual religions will fall. And that whole attitude of that they should receive tax exemption for whatever reason because they give charitable gifts or they provide something of value to society or to individuals, um, that will be seen for the scam that eventually be seen for the scam that it is. And we will be standing there waiting for them to catch up with us.
Yeah, told you so.
Well,
Yeah,
Christianity is largely discounted in much of Europe. It's only old people who still go to church and practice these outdated, concepts and religions. It's a really America is considered backward in that sense, that Christianity is still so strong here. It frightens some other countries sometimes that we're so committed, it seems, as a country to that outdated mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it was Iceland recently that just did a poll, and it might not have been Iceland, but I think it was Iceland that just did a poll of its populace, and it's over, for the first time in history in a Northern European country, the number of people who are either non-religious or straight up atheists are higher than the number of people who are religious, at least among the youth.
Woohoo! That's good. Yeah. Yeah, when it happens, when it starts to happen, it will probably be, a European nation that starts the ball rolling toward taxation of all churches, I'm sure.
Hmm. Yep. I was looking through this. They've got these. There's a website here. Let's see if I can find it. It's called procon.org,
Mm.
and they've got top pro and con arguments for if churches were taxed.
Uh-huh.
The pro exempting churches from taxation upholds the separation of church and state, embodied by the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of the United States. And the con is tax exemptions for churches violate the separation of church and state enshrined in Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Hmm.
So
That's,
I see no argument.
mhm.
The pro you can pro and con all day long and everything. People are giving money to an organization, and these people are keeping every cent to themselves, and it's sickening. It's ridiculous, and I don't understand why they can't. Especially when you look at it as an organization that claims to help, and then they hoard everything to themselves. I'll never forget. Um, a friend of mine's child died. He was 17 or 18 years old. He died of a muscle disease. And our family actually went to the local church, and it's a big church. I mean, they rake in a shit ton of money. And because he was broke and didn't know what he was going to do, and he wanted to get a headstone for his boy.
Mm.
So we went in there and went to the head minister. Hey, is there any chance that you can help financially with this? Well, I don't handle finances. You got to talk to that guy. Okay. So we went to that guy, laid out everything. It was like, $3,000. He needs $3,000 to try and get this headstone done. And right off the bat, sorry, we don't do that.
Mm.
What do you mean
Yeah.
you don't? What do you mean you don't do that? You can't pass around the plate a second time and ask for a secondary donation for this cause or anything. No, because if we did that, we would have to do that for everybody.
Mm.
And I've never
Yeah.
wanted. That's one of the few times I've never wanted to hit somebody so bad. I couldn't believe he just looked at me and said that. If we did that for one person, we'd have to do that for everybody. I'm like, with as
Is
much money as you guys make.
Yeah.
isn't that
That's
kind
disgusting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One more
of to do
one
stuff
more
like that for
notch against
everybody?
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I think it's worth reading from the original article. If churches were taxed for all their income and property, Anton LaVey wrote, they'd crumble overnight of their own obsolescence, and the national debt would be wiped out as quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
So
Yeah,
why?
I mean, could
I'm not so sure now, being in the trillions, but it would maybe in a couple weeks. So
Yeah. It
can
would
I
make a
mean,
pretty good debt.
yeah,
even if the national debt wasn't wiped out, can you imagine the sheer amount of income that the country would get from that? I mean, there are
Yeah.
so many religious organizations that if they all paid a proper amount of taxes, uh, we would have no need to worry about whether we're raising taxes on private citizens or not. We would have the money.
Yeah. And that's what will eventually make the difference. Is they'll start, the religious aspect will become less and less important, and less and less respected. It will become more disdained, and people will
Mhm.
see it for the scam that it is. And politicians will start, kind of rubbing their hands together and saying, "Boy, what we could do with that cash. Let's look in that direction." There's been some rumblings in America, but not nearly enough yet. But it'll come. It'll
And
come.
what's bad is it's still supported by people of such low income who
Hmm.
feel that they have to give money to the local church so God will hear their prayers. My mom lives on a very small budget,
Hmm.
and she goes every Sunday and gives money, and I'm like, Mom, what could you have done with that? You just said that you were having trouble paying your electric bill, yet you gave that to them. Well, I'm hoping, it comes back around. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't. Not when you give it to them. It doesn't come back
Hmm.
around. Okay,
Hmm.
it goes into his house and his fancy car.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but those are the people they take advantage of. And again, that's what made Anton LaVey so angry, is they were taking advantage of the people who could afford it the least
yeah,
by convincing them that, it's like buying your way into heaven by
yeah,
convincing them that they had to pay, they have to tithe, they have to buy off the big guy in the sky in order to make their life better. And it's just disgusting. It's
it is.
disgusting that they've been able to get away with it for this long.
Yeah. Well, now it's the norm. Everyone they just see it as, well, this is how it's always been. This is how it's got to be. And they teach their kids, and hey, we give this. And oh,
Yeah,
boy. So
yeah.
it's crazy. All right. So we're back on again. Had a few little technical issues and everything like that, but we're rolling again. So where we headed, Jeff? Come on, I'll let you.
Well, number three ties almost directly into to number two, but in a little bit more of a social aspect kind of way. Number three is no tolerance for religious beliefs secularized and incorporated into law and order issues. And then goes on to call for a reestablishment of lex talionis, or the law of the talon, the idea of the punishment should fit the crime. Um, and the reason that this needs to be stated is that, unfortunately, first and foremost, our criminal justice system is just broken. It's shattered right now. But on top of that, it's almost directly related back to ideas from religion that were uh, incorporated into that system. Ideas like forgiveness, or the death penalty is bad, and even just silly stuff like this little town in Ohio where I went to high school at. There was a law in the books where, and I shit you not, this is how ridiculous it is. There's a law in the books still to this day that you cannot walk backwards on Main Street while eating a donut, because someone did that once and bumped into a pastor, and the pastor had pull in the city council.
You want to hear crazy? You want to hear a
Very
crazier one?
important.
There's a law. There's a law somewhere. What's funny is I was just talking about this with my brother a couple days ago. There's a law that states that you cannot carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket on a Sunday.
Mm. Be careful of that one.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess you don't want people to slip and trip on the way to church. Oh boy.
But
Well, and
so
who was hiding the ice cream cone in their back pocket when they were going to
Yeah,
church?
yeah.
That's what I want to know. That poor little kid, boy, he really heard it, didn't he?
Hey, that's what it was. He used it. He used his money to buy an ice cream cone instead of giving it to the church. That's it. That's what
Ah,
happened right
giving
there.
it to the Lord. I think that's it.
and I
Yeah.
think,
Well,
before we actually get into the criminal aspect of this, I think probably the one law that most people are familiar with is the so-called blue laws that exist
mm,
around the country, where you can't sell liquor on Sundays or during certain hours on Sundays, things like that are directly based on Old Testament uh, scripture. Um, which to me is ridiculous because, first and foremost, it's a violation of the First Amendment, like just right off the board. But for whatever reason, these laws have lasted for over 100 years now. Um, uh, but that's the one that really drives me nuts is these weird little blue laws that exist. Like, okay, I'm not Christian, so why can't I buy a bottle of whiskey at 10 a.m. on a Sunday?
Well, vice laws in general are abhorrent to Satanists, because I think most Satanists are more than willing to have very little control over prostitution or, I mean, drugs. We're certainly making headway. America is making headway as far as marijuana use goes, medical marijuana. That's been on the books for a long time, and I think that's ridiculous. That it's an herb. It's been used medicinally for thousands of years, and yet we can't even grow it. We can't grow hemp in America as a crop as our founding fathers did. It's a very useful crop, but because of whatever ideas people have about marijuana, we can't even grow it to create paper and rope and cloth the way that it should be grown and utilized. So I think this third point also ties into the first point, stratification, in that it's sort of a combination of the taxation of churches and stratification, in that it's all about experiencing the consequences of your actions, for good or ill. What you do, what should be on you. And as a society, I think it's very clear what we accept and what we don't accept. Rape, murder, thievery, all of these things. It doesn't take a great deal of thought to agree on, and it certainly didn't come from the Ten Commandments. All of this crap about that our country was founded on the Ten Commandments. This goes back to the Code of Hammurabi. This goes back to the earliest articulation of laws that we have. It certainly isn't based on Christian laws about doing good to other people and all of that. It goes back much further than that. And the whole concept of again getting back to we're a Christian nation is a bunch of hogwash, as we well know as Satanists. But people should not be protected. It gets back to responsibility to the responsible. Shouldn't
Yeah,
be
I think that's the
protected
key.
from the
That's definitely the
consequences
key
of
here.
their actions. And
One excellent point that he brings up in this part is the amnesty should be considered for anyone in prison because of his alleged influence upon the actual perpetrator of the crime, and that to me is always that kind of goes back to the whole the Senate hearings over heavy metal music when they introduced the parental advisory stickers and things like that. Violent music or violent video games made these kids do it. No, no, no. The kids chose to do it. Whatever the alleged crime was, the kids chose to do it. It is not the artist's fault. It is not the programmer's fault. It is not even if you want to take it to more of like a religious point of view, it's not as much as I despise the cult leaders and things like that. It's not their fault that someone chose to follow their words. Everyone has the responsibility to live a productive life in accordance with the society they live in. And if Bob down the street tells you, "Oh man, you should totally kill that dog," you have the responsibility to not kill that dog.
yeah, or if
That's
the dog next door is talking to you, as has happened.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the most craziest things I never understood about, like Manson. It was, yeah, these people killed all these people and everything like that, and he supposedly told them to do it, and he went to prison. It's like, well, whether he told them to do it or not, if they did it, they chose to do it, they're the ones to blame. I mean, I can tell somebody all day long to do something, but that doesn't make it my fault that they did it.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Scapegoating. It's
yeah,
scapegoating. It's the old, the old story. I did it because he told me to do it, or because I didn't know he was going to do that. I didn't know he was going to kill the guy or something. I was just standing there. I wasn't doing anything. It was his fault.
yeah,
But yeah, and we are privileged to now see a lot of the scapegoating that went on during, again, the Satanic Panic. A lot of these people are now being recognized for not were being put in jail because they wore black and because they had different ideas, and they were the town weirdos when something happened. And now they're getting out of jail. These accusations against them, decades later, are now being proven false, and they're suing the crap out of the people that, the county or the city that put them in jail wrongly, falsely, and rightly so, because they've been deprived of their freedom for these many, many years. And yeah, it's frightening that can happen because of scapegoating, because they think they're different, because they think they're weird, and now it's being proven that it was all part of wrapped up in the whole hysteria about Satanism at the time.
Yeah, and I saw recently one of the articles about one of the daycare, a couple who ran a daycare that got caught up in that, finally got released from prison, like 22 years after they were convicted. And that's
Right.
insane.
Yeah.
That is
And the
completely
Eccles
insane.
case, Damien Eccles case, and I've heard of 3 or 4 cases recently where that's happened. But it can happen, and that's when, again, when society's morality or ire gets intertwined with our justice system. Justice should be blind. Justice should look at the facts, but a lot of times it gets all wrapped up in whatever's current at the time. And so, yeah, again, I believe the number 3 definitely wraps up with responsibility to the responsible.
Yeah, and it's there, and we could talk about some various aspects of number 3. We could do an entire episode on that. But one of the things I think is really important that isn't happening in society, and we were starting to talk about it with vice laws and things like that, is the punishment fitting the crime, the return to lex talionis.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another topic we discussed a couple episodes ago, Lorcan, where we were talking about how someone who has possession or sale of marijuana can end up doing 25 years to sometimes life, depending on circumstances, for growing and selling or smoking a plant, and someone who harms a child sexually might get 5 to 7 years, and to just be put on a registry, and it's so ass backwards the way that works in our punishment. At the end of the day, and this is my libertarian side coming out again, if there's no victim of the crime, if there's legitimately no victim of the crime, then is it really a crime? Certainly in a case of like child molestation or something like that, there is a victim, and this is an abhorrent, like horrible act, and there's no excuse for someone who does something like that to get a lighter sentence than someone who smokes some dope.
Yeah.
Did something with their
You
own
could
body.
use that concept with almost every single time a cop pulls you over. What did I do? Well, you were speeding, or your lights out and everything. Well, who got hurt because of it? Well, nobody yet. Well, there's no victim. So is it actually a crime? What's happening right now? Like, I mean, the reason you have me aside the road here, is it to prevent, or is it because someone's actually been hurt? So if there's no victim, it's not a crime. So can you just let me go? I mean, so it's you can put that with anything.
Sure, but I mean, when we're talking about reforming society as a whole, I certainly think that my taillight being out weighs a lot less than someone raping and killing someone in their own.
No, absolutely. But what I'm saying is it go. That's why I said it goes with everything. You can you can use that across the board. But
And to be topical, I just read today about a case where there was a gang rape of a girl, 13, 14-year-old girl, and at least 2 of the perpetrators were given a sentence of probation.
Huh.
And people are outraged, of course. That's why it's in the news. But the one quote from one of the fellows was interesting. He said he apologized in his sentencing. He apologized to the family, and he said, "Well, if I'd known she was underage, this never would have happened."
Oh, so if she was 18, it would have been all right.
So something in this fellow's thinking is seriously skewed. Something in his culture and his thinking, and he gets probation. Now they said, Well, it's a strict probation, and it could go on for all his life. It's a probation that's like he has to do service, or he is under very strict guidelines. Well, that's great,
Well,
but it's
I
still
mean,
probation.
obviously, his life has been impacted as hard as his victims, and
Mm.
Yeah.
that was sarcasm for those listening at home.
Yeah. Hopefully they got it. You know. Oh, jeez.
But no, and that is, the sincere quote unquote apology is the modern day equivalent of what Dr. LeVay talks about in this, where you could just cop out by blaming the devil. The devil made me do it,
Yeah.
or God
Right.
spoke to me.
Yeah.
And we have, to our credit, we have started to get away from that, from allowing that to be a good excuse. But the modern day equivalent is the I'm really sorry, because
Yeah.
our justice system is focused on rehabilitation, which is an important aspect, I think, of the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
But it's also designed to that there should be an element of punishment involved in
Yeah.
this. It's not enough just to say that it's not enough to tell, to work on somebody until they won't go rape somebody, if you can even do that. But they have to suffer for the act they've committed against somebody else, and to
That's
steal a line from the Holy Bible, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, like.
that's where lex talionis comes in, because if someone that you loved is killed or raped or hurt seriously, irretrievably, there's a very animal instinct to exact, I won't say revenge, will exact justice for that act. And that can't be denied. That impulse is a true impulse, and it's a valid impulse, and it should be supported by society.
Yeah.
We try
Yes,
to.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reason it's been so buried is directly because of religious ideals from right hand path theistic religions, um, uh, being incorporated into our society. That people, I mean, there are people today that if they had the opportunity to confront, their attacker or their child's attacker or something like that, would forgive them and not do anything. And that's such an unnatural idea to
Mm.
Yeah.
to have. I know everyone was kind of applauding recently with the Olympic doctor who harmed all those gymnasts that he was supposed to be working with and training for the Olympics. The one of the fathers in the court asked the judge for 1 minute alone with the
Mm.
defendant. And I mean, what a beautiful place the world would be if the judge said, "Oh, you would like a minute alone? Absolutely, we'll make that happen."
Yeah.
Mhm.
In my opinion,
That's only fair. 1 minute, that's not much.
Yeah.
That's not much to ask.
Yeah. How about you just blink really long? Christopher Titus said that, not me. Oh man. Yeah, it's I mean, but the thing is even these people that go to prison, there is no punishment. Okay, other than the fact that they're in this box, there's no punishment. I've worked in a prison for 5 years, and it is a country club. It is not a prison. What people see on TV, it is not like that. They have CD players, CDs, books, Xboxes, PlayStations, flat screen TVs, free cable, free education. They get up, they can go to work. They work outside in the garden. Their rec time is 75% of each shift. So I mean, they're out of their cell and in the day room or outside playing ball or anything. I mean, it's insane. And
Mm.
you talk to a lot of them. What do you plan on doing when you get out? Same damn thing I did to get in here. Well, wait a minute. They're like, being in here ain't so bad. So I might as well go out there and try and make the same amount of money I was making before. Because if I come back, oh well, 3 meals a day and all this. I mean, it's crazy. People don't fear prison anymore.
Yeah.
Some people look forward to it. It's crazy.
Well, and they learn new techniques in their craft and create wonderful contacts too.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and there was when I was going through the police academy, I watched videos from prisons that were insane, where they would find a corner that they thought they couldn't be seen in, and they would be training each other. Very very similar to what you would experience in a martial arts school or dojo, on how to stab or disable a police officer getting around their protective vest or their protective equipment.
Yeah.
So they would work with each other for hours every day for a year or more sentence on how to stab through or stab around an officer's protective vest. They're just teaching each other to be better cop killers when they get
Yeah.
out.
Well, they were very blunt with us. They always just they had no problem telling us, I mean, people would get threatened and then the officers would go get stab vests and they're wearing them because everything's a little more bulky at that point. And they'll come right up to you and be like, dude, there's no point in you wearing that stab vest. We're not going to stab you there. We're going for here or your eyes. Well, thanks for telling me. I mean, but I mean, it really, it's no problem. They're like,
They laugh at us.
yeah.
Mhm.
They laugh
I
at
think
us.
another interesting aspect of this in society, and we'll hit this one, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Um, but that's what you see happening in public schools. And I know, Magister Barton, you wrote a fantastic essay about public education a few years back. But
Yeah.
in public schools nowadays, and even as far back as when I was in high school, um, if you get into a fight with someone, both parties are punished equally. So two kids start swinging at each other, and they both get a 10-day suspension, or they both get expelled, or whatever.
Mm.
Which, in my opinion, is a slap in the face to the idea of lex talionis, because uh, fighting isn't necessarily wrong, in my opinion. Starting a fight with a kid in the lunchroom, yeah, that's kind of shitty. You shouldn't do that. But defending yourself should never be punished, ever in society.
Yeah.
And that's what we
Yeah.
see happening, and that's that indoctrination, starting young to when they get old. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
Actually,
It twists the instincts.
yeah, I've actually been yelled at by one of my children's principal because I've always taught them, somebody hits you, you hit them back. You're going to defend yourself. Don't just stand there and punk out. I mean, you can't let people take advantage of you like that. And my daughter, somebody hit her and she lit them up and went to the office and they were like, why would you do that? And like, do what? Hit her back for hitting me? Yeah. And she told him, she was like, my dad told me to defend myself and everything. They called me up and tried to ream me out, acting like I was a problem. Like, I'm not the problem here. The fact that you're looking at my daughter and making her feel bad anyway for
Mm.
defending herself, you're the problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's absolutely
it's
ridiculous.
yeah,
School is a as you say, a completely different topic, and we could have a wonderful show on that for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah. The
Um,
injustices.
so number three is basically the way that I read it. It's a call for the return to actual justice in
Correct.
society, and I,
Yeah.
I think
I would say
that we
so.
could all use a little actual justice in society. Moving on, number four is big in the news right now, huge in the news right now. The development and production of artificial human companions. You got to be living under a rock if you don't see the advances being made in sex doll technology, in home assistants, VIs like Alexa and the Google Assistant, even your phone,
Hmm.
and then to take that into a more virtual realm. It could be argued, I think, quite effectively that social media is a form of having artificial human companions that just happen to be real on the other end of the screen.
you're
Yeah.
real.
Um,
Precisely. Yeah.
there
Yeah,
is
I.
there is so much going on with AHCs in society today, and it's such
Yeah.
an amazing thing to watch happen. So let's talk about the design and development of artificial
yeah.
human companions.
Well, we actually covered this in one of our previous episodes and everything with what was her name, Sophia. The
Yeah, we lightly touched on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Mm.
but to me, it's an amazing thing. I just hope they don't turn into Skynet and take us over.
Well, I think that is the reason the doctor referred to it as the forbidden industry.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. He worked hard on his artificial human companions for decades before he passed. And he breathed in the fiberglass and the glue and he got it down into his lungs. But that was, part of his art was creating his people. He loved his people, and he saw that, if you have tendencies, sexual proclivities that some people might find strange or ultra, there's an artificial human companion for that. If you have sadistic tendencies and you want to get out your aggression and you want to torment or torture someone physically, there's your artificial human companion. I believe it was, as far as social media being another variation on that, someone very smart, it might have been either the high priest or the high priestess or someone of that caliber, said, the doctor got it a little wrong because he actually expected that it would have to look human-like, whereas, that he missed the mark on that one a little bit.
Yeah,
But
and it
yeah,
was
it's
well,
delightful to see. I think the doctor would be very, very pleased with the progress that's been made. But there's money to be made off of it, and the market is rich. And the whole remaking of Westworld and those possibilities too. It's being reflected in the media and the movies, which
yeah.
I think we're way ahead of schedule on that.
There's a commercial that runs now for a service, and I forget the name of the service. Plus, they don't pay us, so I'm not going to plug them. But they basically they search through all the various people you might need for a labor project, whether it's home improvement or extermination, things of that nature. Hold on one second. Right. Okay. Sorry, I had to pull up what I was looking at here. But so the idea is that within like 2 or 3 seconds, it can find the perfect person for whatever job it is that you're doing. And so the commercial goes like this lady's out jogging, and her neighbor runs up and is jogging next to her, and she's telling her about this project. I need my house painted. And her neighbor's like, oh, I know a guy for that. She's like, oh, great. Could you give me their information plus the information of the top three competitors, do a background check and a
Yeah.
review, and yada, 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 and get back to me in 3 seconds. And the neighbor's looking at her like, what?
No.
You know? And that to me is, it doesn't even have a face. This program has no face, it has no body, but it is the perfect AHC. It is doing exactly what your neighbor can't do.
Yeah.
Like the AHCs are far excelling what we get out of actual human companionship in certain regards in society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just so interesting, so interesting.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, man. I'm loving
Yeah.
I'm loving the idea of these. But the problem is a lot of the stuff being new as it is and everything is still far too expensive for most people. Yeah, I mean a lot of these, things that are coming out are like $10,000, $15,000, and it's like, well,
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want a sex doll, yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
But
I'm sorry.
But
That's what's on my mind here. I'm sorry.
I
that'll
do think
come down. That'll come
one of
down
my
for sure.
one of my favorite scenes of anything with the Doctor in it was the one in, I believe it was in Speak of the Devil, and you were in it as well, where he was in the Den of Iniquity, and you were saying how much time he spent on those mannequins and making that, well, we're going to talk about here in a minute, making that total environment. But it was such a wonderful scene because you could see, even if you didn't know him at all, you could see in his eyes how much he cared, truly and like deeply cared for these characters that he had created out of wood and plaster and fiberglass and things. And to me, that always, like, that is the moment when I saw that made the whole idea of AHC stick for me.
Yeah.
Was that you're creating your own reality, literally
Mm-hmm.
in this case, creating your own reality, and what powerful magic that is.
Yeah.
And if
You're
everybody,
Galatea.
if everybody did that, everyone would be happy.
Yeah. And I mentioned the sex and the violence, but that you might want to exercise. But at the same time, what about the love? What about the love that you can't give to anyone else because you've been burned, you've been hurt, and you can't trust anyone else?
Yeah.
But this creation, this Galatea, you can pour all of your love, all of your admiration. You can have dinner together. You can go on dates together as it becomes more and more acceptable. You know, you can go out to dinner. You can be seen together. You can look lovingly into each other's eyes, and just have a world all into your own.
Yeah.
And that's the possibility for artificial human companions. Maybe if someone isn't as richly endowed, maybe they don't look uh, conventionally attractive, or they've got something going on that where they can't court, or they can't spend time on a real human. They don't have the
Mhm.
time to give this human. But an artificial human companion will be there for you no matter what.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and you know it ties in so directly with like I was just saying, because the ultimate idea, obviously, in Satanism is self-deification. It's being your own God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it ties in so directly that I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it, and we can keep talking about both of them together if you want to. But total environments, the opportunity for anyone to live within a total environment of his or her choice, with mandatory adherence to the aesthetic and behavioral standards of same. Um, and I, you know, I mentioned the den of iniquity. The doctor certainly, from everything that I've seen, did that with the Black House. He created his entire universe, complete with his artificial human companions and his real human companions, and an aesthetic that he enjoyed, and he built it into every corner of that house. He meticulously built it into every corner of that house, and I think that's something that for all the BS that Satanists might sometimes get for being, I think Magister Rose put it as LaVey lackeys or whatever. Um, it's something that I think we all try to emulate. I think we all, I mean, you can see Lorcan's part of Lorcan's house behind you. He
Mm-hmm.
decorates with the aesthetic he chooses. He tries to build his own environment. I think we all do that with our own home, uh, and then of course there's the um, capitalist ideology of like Disney World and places like that that obviously have created giant total environments themselves. Um, so what do you guys think about total environments? Like, give us some examples, give us some ideas.
Well,
Well,
my thing is,
Anton, look, yeah, go
go,
ahead.
no, no. I was just gonna say, you know, with me at least, I look at it as it's when you do that and you focus on what's directly around you and your existence, you can create a blissful life. You can create just pure happiness. And, you know, I feel bad for these people who are out there who are living their lives to be like everyone else, to, you know, wear the same clothes as this magazine says to wear and the same hairdos. And, you know, they're searching for originality completely in the opposite direction. You know, they're being like everybody else to try and be original. And you know, I think you know with me, like every room is kind of crazy like this, and I I love the fact that I have found a way to not find a rich life so much as in financial, but it's just I can create my own existence and be the king of the universe.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's what Anton LaVey really admired, when people can do that. And as you say, it doesn't take, bundles and bundles of money to be able to create an inspiring environment for yourself. And
yeah,
I think that's true. You know, a lot of Satanists are very creative people. I think by definition, almost, we are creative people because we vibrate to these images, these creative forces that we conjure for ourselves, within ourselves, and with the iconography that we find most stimulating and dramatic. We're nature very dramatic people, and just looking around your environment and seeing the images and the iconography that inspire us every day, it's like oxygen.
yeah,
It allows us to build and flow on what we feel is our little citadel here. This is what we've created, and this is what we find strength and inspiration. And those strengths and inspirations are reinforced for us in our surroundings. So we do draw strength. And societally, You know, the doctor was a big admirer of Walter Disney for what he did with Disneyland, and because he created in Main Street, he recreated his own hometown, and he just opened it up for everybody else to experience it too. And now at Universal Studios, we have Harry Potter and the Wizarding World, and we have virtual Wizarding worlds all over the place. There's any fandom, anime conventions, Victorian gatherings, steampunk gatherings where people can dress up, Renaissance fairs. It started with Renaissance fairs. You can dress up, you can go, explore different hobbies and eat different foods. And, they're wonderful total environments for people. You have to stay in character. You have to use the same language. You create a character for you to be. I went to a Victorian gathering with, a lot of steampunkers and stuff. And boy, they were just the time they spend on crafting these costumes and their personas was just absolutely enchanting and so exciting to see people, like at Comic-Con or anime conventions, just really get into these characters and really dress and present themselves as they want to be seen. So we're doing it more and more, and it's become more and more acceptable, I think, in society to indulge in that way, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was I forget which one of you mentioned it when we were talking about AHCs. Everyone could just be happier if we did, this certain thing. And imagine, that home wasn't a place like it always makes me scratch my head when people say like, oh man, I haven't gone out in like 3 months. I just sit around at home and do nothing. I'm like, why is your home so boring?
Yeah.
Like, I love my home because I put that great deal of care into everything that I'm doing, so that whenever I'm feeling a case of writer's block or something for a song, I can sit in the room that I know will provide inspiration because I've designed it to do that. And so when I go out into the world, and I have to interact with other people that I normally wouldn't, I'm a pretty happy guy because I know that I've got my fortress of solitude waiting for me back, on my street.
Right.
And I think that idea of like everyone would be happier here applies as well. I mean, if everyone just put the time and effort to creating the environment around themselves that they truly wanted to live in, then the world in general would be a pretty happy place. And to your point, Magister Barton, it doesn't cost that much money. It costs some time, but it doesn't cost that much money.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it could take you 15, 20 years to slowly build it up. But I mean, it's like I said, this and my entire house is like this, and it's something I've been working on for I'm 38 years old. Yeah. And
Yeah.
but
It comes down to stage crafting, which is always important to Satanists. And creating your home, your environment is your ritual chamber. It then becomes every room in the house is your ritual chamber. As you say, you can look at a wall, at a painting or a figure or a statue or listen to a piece of music or if you whatever you're inspired by, and you are getting this invigoration everywhere you look. Everything you see, everything you touch is part of your creation,
yeah,
and your unique creation that reflects yourself. It's like you've got mirrors all around you and creating this demonic reflection back to you. So that's very inspiring, and for Satanists, I know it's very important. I've seen wonderful places that Satanists have created for themselves, spaces, and it's hard to live without that. I've been in times, in situations, in living situations where I couldn't, for one reason or another, really express that part of me, and it you ache, you just
yeah,
ache.
it's
It
draining.
hurts,
Yeah.
you feel like you don't have a place, like there's no place for you.
If you don't
And
mind, I'd like to ask a personal question, if you don't mind. You lived in the Black House for a number of years. Um, did that did that fit your aesthetic, your idea of a total environment, or did you make some changes? Like how did that living in that environment, aside from the doctor himself, feel for you?
it was magical. I mean, it was an ideal situation for me. I loved that house. I tried to save that house. That house was a living entity, and it every night when I went to sleep, or morning more often when we went to sleep, um, I felt the house sort of snuggle around me and protect me, because we had a lot of people coming by and attacking the place, and it had been under siege for a long time. But it, you know, it spoke to me, and I treasured it very much. I loved the house. I loved everything in it. You could feel the energy from all the people that had been through those doors over the years, all the celebrations, all the rituals that had taken place in that house. And the doctor said, the roots of this house run all the way down to hell. And I shudder to think what kind of happenings go on in the place that's built there now. I imagine.
I was actually surprised. I went the last national tour I did. We went through San Francisco, and so I went to the condos because you got to take the obligatory picture in front of the area, even if it doesn't look the
Yeah,
same.
yeah,
And one of the ladies who lives in one of the condos that's there now actually invited us up and gave us some cookies and stuff. And she was a real
nice.
sweet lady.
That's
She said
great.
she has people that walk by all the time to take pictures in front of the space. So it was nice to see that there was some of the, I guess the character still in that little
Hmm.
plot in San Francisco.
Yeah,
It's nice to know she appreciates it too and gains strength from it.
yeah. All right, so
Well,
the end of the essay is finishes up with this is the encapsulated version of the current thrust of satanic advocacy. So when someone asks you, well, what do Satanists do? You will be qualified to tell them, as long as you paid attention to everything we
right.
said.
I think that's a very fitting into that essay. And we started this off by talking about, well, at least I did, talking about how dangerous this idea is to the status quo. Much more dangerous than what the Church of Satan and Satanists were being accused of back during the Satanic Panic. Now, can you just imagine though, like if we lived in a world where stratification was accepted, was commonplace, it was just the way things were. Churches didn't exist without being taxed. Law and order held in high regard, and the punishment always fit the crime. And everyone had their own personal little robot slave and an environment where they felt truly at peace and inspired and happy. Just how different and how amazing the world would actually be. I, that is Satanism. That is self-deification in and of itself. I mean, everyone living with a purpose, living every moment of their life to the fullest ability that they can, and being able to disappear into their own little escape whenever they open their front door. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's bringing a tear to my eye. It's bringing a tear to my
And
eye.
knowing that if you work hard, that will be appropriately rewarded. And knowing
Yes.
that those who trespass against society's norms and rules will be duly punished.
Yeah,
Hmm.
That's a peace of mind for everyone in society.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're working
So
toward it, and it's I don't think it's completely without our grasp, but it seems like we take a step forward and take two steps back, and then we take a step forward and take two steps back. So it's just something that's going to take us 400 or 500 more years, and then we might get there. So,
hopefully not as
Well,
long.
that's why we
Um,
create and write and make these so that they will last, hopefully, long past us and influence those to come.
yeah.
yeah. And so to close this out, um, in the issue number 133 of the Globe and Post, you wrote LeVay's 5-point plan revisited, an essay about pentagonal revisionism. And this is, I want to say this is three or 4 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not sure.
2013,
Okay, yeah,
20,
so
yeah,
about 4 years ago.
like 5 years
Um,
ago, 4 years.
and you pointed out some areas in society where we're doing really well, like we spoke of tonight about artificial human companions and total environments. Has it changed? in the last 4 years? Have you seen society start to guide more towards the other points as well, or do you feel like we're still kind of in the same situation we were when you wrote this essay?
I don't see that there's been a lot of progress, especially towards stratification and the judicial process. We still hear outlandish judicial decisions being made. There's still a terrible cult of the victimization. There's still a lot of scapegoating. There's still more divisiveness in politics and more bubble effect, if you will, where we've become more politically polarized and lazy in our thinking, lazy in our arguments, and not really able to pull things together and engage in issues that are vitally important politically, environmentally, socially. We've got some very hard work to do.
Yeah.
And if we don't pull it together, we're going to be in real trouble. Humanity is going to be in a real trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got to pull it together. But I end that essay articulating what our job is as the Church of Satan to keep reflecting on and refining for generations to come what Satanism is, what it isn't, and to keep exploring Satanism in new ways and applying it, and to make sure that Satanism is understood and appreciated, so that we don't suffer from other people's misapprehension of what Satanism is. And that's why we need the Church of Satan as a definer and to define and clarify, stand as the one that does that for all of us. A lot of us are non-joiners, but we need this organization to continue to serve for all of us to be protected and adequately represented as Satanists in society. And the primary goals for any Satanist is for any living creature, has been defined by sociologists and people who study such things as to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient. And that's not very hard to do. That's pretty much what Satanists need to do. And again, it's pithy, it's short, and it's clear. Yeah, and that's how we find a purposeful life.
Yeah, unless you're a Catholic and then you efficiently seek out pain by getting rid of pleasure.
Well, that's your whatever makes you happy, whatever perversions make you happy, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, I'm all for it. So.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Well, it's just, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I can't thank you enough, Magister Barton, for coming on and for helping clarify some of these points, and just for chatting with us, for BSing with us about this. It's an important topic that I think not a lot of Satanists really focus on too often when they're thinking about the philosophy and whatnot. So, hopefully it won't take 400 years. Hopefully, maybe within our lifetimes, we'll see some of these points better implemented in our society. But again, thank you so much.
You're doing the best you can to move things forward, to move civilization forward, and I applaud everything you're doing. I really enjoyed our conversation. You obviously are, trying to be forward-thinking and objective, and trying to get the idea, reinvigorate the idea of honest and open discussion and debate, and that's how we maintain a democracy, and I applaud you for it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Well.
All right.
There's never a good way to end an episode, right?
Hold on.
You should, I don't know when this is going to be broadcast, and you can cut this out, but I hope you both have a very happy Walpurgisnacht.
Oh, you as well.
Oh, yeah. It'll definitely be up before then, and you as well, yeah. I haven't solidified everything I'm doing yet. I don't know if Lorcan has, but I got some ideas in mind for something I want to throw together. So,
well, intelligence supreme.
Yeah,
absolutely, yes.
Mine's pretty much in the bag. So yeah, I got
right.
got some good things going that night.
Well, Until the next time, and I hope, Magister Barton, that you will come back on the show at some point in the future and discuss some more news and current events things with us. But until next time, everyone, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Magister Barton, for being here, and hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.